Season 2, episode 5. So we're going to bring Izzy into it. Izzy's going to give us a little bit of a story. Everyone loves a story. So a little bit more background to Iz. For anyone that knows her and does her classes, we're very familiar with her music. But today we're going to dive in a little bit deeper and we're going to get to know a little bit more about what makes Izzy Izzy. So I suppose the question is, where do we start? Where would you like to start? What do you think is a cool bit of information you'd like to share on your journey?
I mean, I guess it depends what you want to, like, where you want to go with this. Is it fitness? Is it life? Is it...
Let's start with coach. So we're director's coaching career. When did your coaching career start and where did it start?
So I went to uni after school and studied exercise science. Kind of knew that I always wanted to get into coaching or PT, but I didn't want to just do like a 6-month certification in PT and then be thrown on the floor at 18 and not really know what I'm doing. So I decided to stretch that out to 3.5 years and do a bachelor's degree instead, just to learn and get no
just
career
to rack
pathway.
up some debt and get some knowledge. Yeah.
But, learning is always valuable, I guess. So
yeah, education is one of those things that no one can take away from you.
yeah. So did that and then kind of found CrossFit during uni, even though I was just doing PT at the time, but definitely felt like doing CrossFit made a lot more sense, learning stuff practically while learning stuff alongside the degree, because it was very much theory, especially where I went to uni. Like most people just get into post-grad or research out of Auckland Uni. There's not much like practicality.
And it's a common theme. Like it's become more accessible with online learning, and one of the trade-offs is the fact that you're just going to get less prac.
Like even people in my class didn't even train and they're studying exercise science.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're just nerds.
At least you got a bit of anecdotal by doing your own training,
Exactly.
going through some problem solving and
Yeah.
getting to implement some of the principles you were learning.
For sure, and I feel like that made me want to like get into it as soon as I could, sort of thing. So I actually started PT like during uni, and so I was doing both. Even though I wasn't finished, I still had like enough to do to get registered exercise professionals in New Zealand rep certification. Still had enough papers to do that, so then I just started, and it was actually quite cool, like learning along the way, but also working as well.
And you worked in Auckland at the gym that you were training at? Is that where you got a job? Or
No, so I did like personal training at Les Mills, Auckland City, and then
Yeah.
I trained at Carbon Method CrossFit. But it was
Throwback Les Mills. Everyone remember Les Mills?
it was quite good to have that separate, I think, at the start of like, this is work and this is training.
Yeah.
Like going between the two makes you feel a little bit more fresh, I think, especially in the beginning. And then I did PT for like 2 years, and then I moved out of Auckland to Mount Maunganui, and then just started CrossFit coaching only. I didn't do any PT there, just smaller town, not really as much demographic for personal training.
And that transition from one-to-one to small group and big group classes, how'd you find that?
All right. I mean, like now I'm doing both, and I definitely prefer doing both at the same time, but I definitely like learned a lot because I had done group fitness actually when I was 16. I got a job at the gym like after I did my cafe job. In the weekdays when I finished high school, I taught like Les Mills classes, body pump, and like the HIIT class or whatever.
Yeah, so you're always around fitness.
Yeah, and that's like what I did at the start. So it wasn't unfamiliar, but definitely different. I think that for me, group classes, because there's so many people, like you have to cater to more needs, and there's also more feedback. So like you can't please everyone. I definitely feel like there was more development, whereas personal training, if someone doesn't like you, they just stop training with you.
Yeah, and it's very hard in a group scenario. They're very separate skills. So even though a lot of what you're doing and a lot of problem solving that you are going through with clients in a group scenario, like you said, there's 100 feedback loops rather than one.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to have the ability to filter all of that and react and implement and create change in a 45 to 60-minute class. It is a very underrated skill to be able to execute in those scenarios compared to one-on-one.
Yeah, and obviously
One-on-one, I
one-on-one
personally find so much easier.
Yeah, you have a lot more rapport with the person, even if they like don't like something about you or whatever, it's easier to like overcome that because they almost become more like your friends rather than if you don't spend as much time with someone else. If they don't like something, they'll just give you the feedback straight away or give your boss the feedback straight away.
Yeah, I compare it to like when you're doing like low heart rate, single modality skill work or execution. So like your gymnastics that you always end up playing with, when you're just doing it in isolation and you have that controlled environment, it's fine. But we make you go and do 100-meter sprints, come back and try, like 200-meter sprint, come back and try, add wall balls, come back and try. That's kind of what a class environment is like.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very, very high intensity.
Yeah.
And then leading on from that, so once you got your job and you were doing the one-on-one, how long were you there for? And do you remember what the gym was called?
Which one?
When you did your one-on-one after uni.
So like during uni, I was at Les Mills, and then I was at a small personal training studio called Bodyform, and then I left those, moved cities, and then started training at Mount Crossfit, and then was working there full time, just coaching CrossFit.
And how long did you work there?
A year, 1 year, and then
Yeah.
I moved to Abu Dhabi.
An average class size?
At Mount CrossFit,
Yeah.
pretty big to be honest. Especially Saturdays. I was on Saturdays there. Would be like 25, 30. But average, like, in the mornings, maybe 10. In the Arvos, 15 to 20.
Yeah.
It's a big space.
So a bit more of an afternoon crowd over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said you moved to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that? And
how
how long were you there for?
Just decided I wanted to do something different, I guess. I definitely wanted to move overseas, and my criteria was basically just somewhere warm. So not really that specific, and perhaps that's why I didn't last that long there, because my why wasn't really that strong for that specific place. But just wanted to go somewhere warm, and I knew someone. There's actually quite a few Kiwis in Abu Dhabi. Knew someone who worked at the gym, and he said to me that the gym is literally always hiring. So in my brain, I was like, well, that takes out the barrier of moving somewhere and finding a job, because that's kind of the scariest part.
You could secure it before you go.
Yeah, so it just happened really quick. I guess I knew him. He said just email them, and then I had a call with the manager straight away, and she pretty much said there is a job available. If you can get here in 6 weeks, then it's yours. And so I just sort of jumped. I guess I was like, how was I at the time? I was 23, and I was like, well, I might as well go now. Figure it out along the way, I guess. So yeah, and then I ended up staying there for 8 months. Definitely learn a lot, but very, very different, as you can imagine.
Enjoyed the tax-free environment?
Well, no, because you don't earn tax, but you pay tax and everything else.
Yeah, just the GST.
Yeah, or like everything's double. Like a coffee's 30 dirhams, which is like $15, $12. Like a coffee.
You're paying on what you spend, not what you earn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're paying on what you spend, and also just other things like you get a fine for driving too slow. You get a fine for going like through an orange light camera or slightly red light camera. Every single camera in Abu Dhabi, every single traffic light in Abu Dhabi has a camera on it.
Yeah.
So like 1 second, fine. 1 second, fine.
Yeah, so every single revenue stream we think our government has, they've optimized.
Yeah. There's literally no room for error. You make a small mistake and it has massive consequences. So unfortunately, there are a few consequences financially for me. So it took me like 6 months of getting set up and paying off some bills and whatever.
Had to work some extra hours to pay off the fines.
Oh yeah.
But that's all part of learning.
But just like,
especially living in a new country.
Yeah. So everyone thinks you go there and you make lots of money, but you actually just go there and you spend all your money because of the lifestyle as well. People earn money there, so then they spend it. And even if you have money or you don't, people will just max out credit cards. It's very easy to like get loans. The bank will ring you and they'll be like, if you want a new car, I'll come give you the cash tomorrow. Like, it's so easy.
And you judge by what you drive and what you wear, not by what's in your account.
Yeah,
so
and like
it
what
is,
you do is spend money, like activity money, eating out money. It's not like everything's double, so the costs obviously add up so much quicker.
And so lifestyle-wise, you got exposure to New Zealand and Abu Dhabi. What did you prefer? New Zealand's a little bit more slower paced.
Yeah, New Zealand in regards to lifestyle, but I actually feel like Australia is a good halfway between because the work environment in Australia is a bit more hustle
Yeah.
than New Zealand, like bigger, more opportunities, more money. People just like to work harder here, I guess. Like, obviously, there's a lot more like FIFO and stuff like that. Like, people just go to work, whereas in New Zealand, yeah, there's not as many opportunities and stuff like that. So it's a bit more lax in regards to everything, but I just kind of got bored.
And then from a coaching perspective, how did you find coaching the demographic over there relative to New Zealand?
I mean, it was a little bit backwards in regards to very much like I'm here to lose weight, even though it was a CrossFit gym. So that was quite difficult. Like, I went from personal training, which was a lot of people just came in for aesthetic goals, moving entirely to CrossFit, which people are a bit more like lifestyle, want to learn new things, which I enjoy. And then, yeah, it was almost like going backwards to, although this is a CrossFit gym, I'm just here to lose weight. I'm just here to whatever, just a bit more shallow in regards to what they want.
Yeah, it's like I've been told I need to do this. I don't necessarily want to do this. And there's a big difference when someone gets told by their GP, like, hey, you might have all this money, but you aren't exactly going to have great quality of life. You need to go move.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than someone who actually values learning new skills, being physically active and optimizing that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a little bit hard. I mean, there were definitely people who wanted to learn some skills and stuff. Some people still tag me and look at my ring muscle ups. Izzy taught me this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, there's still people, but yeah, definitely very backwards with a lot of things, including how they view exercise and still quite a negative relationship with.
Yeah, and you still learn a lot. Like you never lose anything. So it's a good one to have on your resume, being over there. And then coming back to Australia. So it was from Abu Dhabi to Australia?
Yeah.
And then where did you work there? First place working in Australia?
Fitness Hub in Redcliffe.
Yeah.
I was there maybe 4 months.
And then was that the same process? Like you got in contact with Brad while you were over in Abu Dhabi, or did you come over first and just take the chance?
No, I was in contact with Brad when I was in Abu Dhabi just because I had a friend here. So that's why I came specifically to Moreton Bay. I just knew people here. Kind of the same reason I moved to Abu Dhabi. You know, it's a little bit easier when you have some direction rather than going somewhere you've never been before. I mean, I've been to Brisbane, like the city, Victorian and stuff, but not like this specific area. Yeah, and same thing. I just knew that there were hours available, so it's a little bit lower of barrier going into a place, kind of guaranteeing work.
And then that demographic in that area, because obviously Redcliffe area, you are in a location where you've got a bit of a hybrid. So you do have people with more money, and then you do have people obviously a little bit more lower class. There's not actually that much middle class over in Redcliffe. What was the demographic and the average age like at Fitness Hub?
Definitely older for sure. I didn't really feel like you couldn't really tell at Fitness Hub who has money, who doesn't. Like, it wasn't obvious, the discrepancy of middle class, I guess, there. But definitely older.
As we're in Dubai, it's very obvious who has money and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, so 6 months, and then came to Unbound?
Yeah, was just looking for a bit more growth. I guess Fitness Hub just has the owner, Brad, he coaches, and then he had like one other part-time, and then it was just me. So hours were sort of limited, and what he can do is sort of limited with the business model there. And then, was just looking for more, and then came to Unbound, and then ended up leaving Fitness Hub because Unbound had enough to give me that full-time sort of growth that I was looking for.
Yeah, so career growth is what you've been looking for.
Yeah, didn't need
and
to
with
do
the
both.
moving around, has that been a common theme for you? You're looking for career opportunities, or was it still trying to work out what you valued and what you wanted as a coach?
Yeah, I think in New Zealand, I definitely felt like I hit a wall. A ceiling. Like, I'm doing as much as I could do in this location. If I wanted to do more, I'd definitely have to like change everything. So I felt like I hit a ceiling, like I can't grow anymore. So then I moved.
Yeah, it's the upward mobility. It's a common constraint in most businesses. Employees get to a point where there's no more upward mobility and they outgrow that business, and then they look for the next thing. That is definitely how it works. I suppose the question for the listeners: where's next on your map? Or
Nowhere.
Have you not thought that far ahead?
No, it's honestly so nice to just be somewhere now where like I see lots of growth at Unbound, and it has been like I maybe been 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months, and like it's been pretty crazy growth in 6 months, to be honest. Getting to the position that I'm in now, which I haven't been in a long time because of the moving around. But it is nice to just be like, right, I still see opportunity here, and I don't want anything else. Yeah, I don't know. This area is kind of a funny one because I think for someone who perhaps I didn't know what I was looking for when I did come to Australia, you're kind of in the middle of everything because I can go to the beach in 45 minutes, sunny coast. I can go to the Gold Coast in an hour, but then I can also go to the city in 45 minutes. So, like, being in the middle, you have access to everything. So rather than being like just beach life, which is what I had in New Zealand, or just city life, which is what I had in Abu Dhabi, here it's like I have both.
Yeah.
They have beaches there, but it's just different.
The artificial beaches.
Yeah, that you have to pay for.
Yes. I suppose that's a lot on your coaching career so far, and it's just starting. In terms of your personal development and your training, do you want to touch on that a little bit for us? So I know everyone just assumes you have a gymnastic background because of your posting, and you don't snatch, you don't lift, and you don't squat. You just do gymnastics.
I post my snatches. I like snatches.
But you're not a gymnastics coach, are you?
No, I've actually never done gymnastics, or maybe did gymnastics for a year when I was 5. And you know how they do, well, if you do gymnastics, you know that they do like a handstand competition where you hold the longest handstand, and then if you lose, you don't progress to the line. I actually always lost. So I was terrible at gymnastics when I did it when I was 5, and it didn't translate to anything in CrossFit or help me at all. My mum said that once. She was like, oh, good thing you did gymnastics when you were little. That would have helped you so much. I'm like, I literally didn't do anything. I didn't even learn how to glide kip.
Just hurt your ego.
Yep.
So do you want to touch on that a little bit more? So your skill progression in gymnastics has really just been a discipline thing and a consistency thing.
Yeah.
It's not like you had a huge advantage because you had this background in gymnastics.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you say discipline, I say obsession. I started doing quite a lot of yoga when I was at uni because I worked for Lululemon, and you know they encourage you to go do all the yoga. And handstands was kind of like part of that. And I remember going to this one studio, and the teacher would always say like, if handstands are in your practice, like come to handstand. I'm like, well, what does that mean? I would like it to be in my practice, but no one's going to teach me how to do this. I can't just like come to handstand, kick up, flop, and then in the middle of the class, you know?
Yeah.
It was like always in the sequence, in the flow, but never room to like play. So then one year I was like, right, I'm just going to do a handstand every day and see what happens. So I did #handstand365. And I had no guidance. Even I became friends with this girl, Julia, who was amazing at handstands. And she said to me, the only person who can teach you how to handstand is yourself. And I was like, she's not going to tell me any of her secrets.
Because there is no secret.
Yeah, there is no secret. I mean, there's definitely
It's just
more efficient ways of doing it than literally just kicking up every day and working it out along the way. But I feel like I did all the trial and error, which was the long way, but a good way. I could perhaps share knowledge to other people about what was good trial and error to speed up their process. For example, what I achieved in a year, I've worked with clients specifically just for handstands, and they've achieved in 2 months because I went through the trial and error process, so they didn't have to, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically just became obsessed with handstands, and then started CrossFit, but could already do handstands. And then I moved gyms and started working with a gymnastics coach, Mark Hollyoak, who's a ex-Commonwealth Games gymnast, and just did PT with him every week. And he definitely, like, just made it fun, but also, like, he was really disciplined with me. And I think that was what really helped the progression, like, someone
It helps with your understanding of positions and like how you got to achieve what you achieved and how you can replicate it with other people. I think that anecdotal of doing it yourself, that's one part of it, but actually understanding what you did is why you were then able to condense the learning curve for your clients.
Yeah.
Is where if you didn't understand, you were like, well, I just turned up every day and worked.
Yeah.
Then that's all you're going to be able to teach your clients as well.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's only one part of the puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. And he was really strict with me in regards to like movement stuff. So I learnt the hard way. I feel like he not held me back, but he would never ever let me do a bar muscle up if he knew it was going to be ugly. You know, like when I could do one bar muscle up, I could also do 30 singles in a workout the next week, because once I got it, I was so good because he was so strict on my positions.
Yeah.
And then that built so much more awareness that when I got it, it was like, okay, it's there. It wasn't just like a fluke or.
It's a touching on that. It's a framework I use with my clients. I use a 1 to 3. So that first muscle up, if they can do 1, they should be able to do 3.
Yeah.
Because the second rep and the third rep is easier than the first rep.
Yeah.
Like you're dropping from a higher height. If your positions are good, if your understanding is good, like the next rep is going to have more momentum and it is going to be easier to execute. And
Yeah.
like you're talking about, that comes down to execution of those basics.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to pivot a little bit here, just because that is one thing that we tend to see a lot in classes, is where people go to bands. All right. Now, where do you sit with the banded muscle up, and what problem does that solve?
I think the only time it's appropriate to do a banded muscle up, this will be different to Michael's opinion, but if it is a mental block for you, the only time I've ever done banded muscle ups, I mean, keeping in mind I did PT, so I had him to spot me, but the only time I've ever used banded muscle ups was when I hurt my back doing muscle ups, and then I had to relearn them, and the movement was there. I just could not in my brain like get everything to wire to go over by myself. Like I was literally doing straight arm banded bar muscle ups with one red band. Like it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
But I just needed that little sense of
Needed that
security
comfort, yeah.
and reps and reps and reps. And then, like I said, when I did get my muscle ups back, it was actually in a comp. And I was like, well, shit, I just have to do it. I had done so many with the band, so good, that then they were there. And I didn't just do one, I did 10, you know.
And it's intent. Like I know there's two parts when I would use a banded muscle up. I'm not a big fan of them in workouts, only because you do want someone to not necessarily have the stress of the time cap or all the other movements that carry over fatigue, because they're most likely going to break down positions or not execute the way you want them to execute. I use it for confidence. So like you're talking about, just to get someone confident on top of the bar, and then joint volume. So if joint volume is something that we need to expose an athlete to, right, going and putting them through 30 to 50 bar muscle ups at body weight, they're probably going to rip. It's going to affect their training for the rest of the week. So we might run a banded variation to take some of the stress off their hands, but still put the joints through the volume of contractions.
I guess also like we scale muscle ups so much to, okay, let's go back, chest to bar, pull ups, but then it's pull, and no one knows how to push.
No. We talk about it all the time, yeah.
So I guess it is good for that, like learning turnover, push, because bar muscle-ups actually aren't a pull, it's a hip drive and then a push.
More similar to a toaster bar than it is a pull-up.
Yeah. So I think that they're good in that and getting strong in that push-down position. Yeah.
And it is a movement that a lot of people want. A lot of people are very keen to have a muscle-up. I think we can dive into that a little bit deeper. So you were talking about learning to push. What other movements would you normally give to a client to try and develop their pushing strength? And is it as simple as just developing pushing strength, or is there actually different expressions of that pushing strength?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're thinking about it like simply, I mean, push-ups are such an underrated thing in gymnastics, but done properly, you know, moving as push-ups with tension, not just worming your way up. Actually understanding like how to move your body as one unit in a push-up, you know, coming into full protraction at the top, maybe doing them to a deficit. If I see someone who can't muscle up and then I see their push-ups, I'm literally like, well, that's why. Like, it's a good expression of that, because everyone thinks that they can do a push-up, but are you doing them properly? So there's that component of it. But then I think the pushing also you can think about pushing like from your lats. So I guess like you said with the toaster bar, it's more like a toaster bar than it is a pull up. A lot of people don't think about that. Yeah, like push with the lats. So I like that drill where you're hanging on the bar and you have your feet on the box and you push down with your lats and slide your feet up the box.
Just your hollow body push.
Yeah. Because like lats can push as well, not pull. It's just that different.
Yeah, they can be used in multiple directions. And the box there just creates the anchor for the person to get more feedback and actually feel what you're trying to get them to feel.
Yeah. And then I also like just jumping bar muscle ups off the box. I don't even worry about the arch. I just try to make the box as low as possible or the bar as high as possible. So you understand that like catch, push down, because if you're floppy in the catch or the push down or you're soft, then it makes it really hard to come out of the dip. But if you have active downward pressure on the bar the whole time, then you just fly up and the bar ends up at your hip.
Yeah, and there's an interesting one I've been working with a couple of clients at the moment where it's like they understand the push, but the execution of it through the movement almost has like a gap. So the easiest way to explain it is when someone snatches or cleans, we've all seen where the bar accelerates, decelerates, and then re-accelerates. So through the second pull, there's a disconnect and they're losing their advantage and then having to try and regenerate momentum. It's almost happening in the bar muscle up as well, where that setup phase of the muscle up, where they're trying to hit that lever position before they rotate, the push is there and it's present. But then as soon as they go to create rotation, it's at the cost of the push.
Yeah, they're thinking like forward, not upward.
Yeah, so the push is here, the setup phase is good, they stop pushing, and now they try to rotate, as where it's a continuous push the whole time while you're rotating.
Yeah.
How would you correct something like that?
I guess just like a combination of different drills. Like I do lots of spotted muscle ups with PTs because I think it's like I know how much to spot. I can get a gauge of how much they need or what part of the movement do they need. So I try not to spot through the arch and the hollow so they're doing the work themselves. I might have a guide for the knees up just so they remember that. And then like maybe they need more lift, or maybe they need more hip drive, and then I can spot which of those they need more, and then it just helps the timing, I guess, of that.
I feel like this has become a bit of a muscle up podcast, but touching on the because it is your wheelhouse, a lot of your one-on-one coaching is around that. With the knee bend, we were talking about this, and it's probably a conversation that a lot of clients would find quite interesting. With the knee tuck, what does it solve? What problem? And how come it tends to be used more with women compared to be men?
So basically, take Michael's scientific explanation and shorten it. Essentially, if you have straight legs, it's a longer lever, which means that to get over the bar, you need more lat strength. If you have bent knees, it's a shorter lever, so it solves that problem, I guess. Very long story short. So generally for females, I feel, who have less lat strength, the knee pop works. I also just think the cue works more in people's heads when they think like toes up. Because of that longer lever, it's a bit of like a delay. Whereas like for myself personally, relearning bar muscle ups after I hurt my back, someone said knees to bar and it just worked. And like with my handstands, I do with my clients what worked for me. You know, it was trial and error for me. They don't have to go through that process because I tell them, you know, what worked. And not everyone's the same, but I definitely was a very floppy noodle with no strength. So if someone comes to me and they're like, oh, but I'm not strong like you, I'm like, no, trust me, I really wasn't strong.
And I think the explanation you gave is really good because there's a clear understanding of what's going on, so you know when to implement it. From my perspective with social media, there's a lot of just throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks. And I think for any coaches out there, that was a really good explanation. So now when they see a discrepancy in a movement pattern, they know what problem that cue actually solves. And then from another point of view, if you're working with an athlete and you go, I want to increase the capacity of this person's muscle ups, doing the muscle up is part of it, but then also developing that lat strength. Rather than just being like, oh, just keep doing muscle ups. It's like we're going to need to still get those lats stronger and combine the two together to now increase increase your capacity and efficiency.
Yeah, but like I said with the pushing drills as well, like I do prioritize lat strength. It's just that from a starting basis, you might not have enough to do a straight leg muscle up, but you might have enough lat strength to do a bent knee muscle up. So
And doing the movement alone, like getting them to learn to do a muscle up, is going to be very advantageous to their progression because it's a very dynamic expression of their strength. So, like that lat strength being expressed in a bar muscle up is very unique to the bar muscle up. So it can be very hard to replicate, where someone might have really good lat pushing strength on some other movements, but it just doesn't transfer because they're not used to the dynamic execution of the drill.
yeah, and like timing, understanding like positional awareness. If you don't know where you are, then how are you supposed to use it?
Yeah. So I think the takeaway there's a combination. Is there anything else you want to add for the listeners? Tyler, you're watching this whole podcast. Any questions, anything you have to add?
Yeah, what are your current goals now that the CrossFit semi-finals are no longer?
Current goals.
So Tyler just asked what Izzy's goals are now that the CrossFit semi-finals aren't necessarily the same as they were the last 2 years.
Big question. Yeah, I guess like before I left New Zealand, I was keen to get a team to semis, and then I left New Zealand. And then I came to Australia, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'll do that again. And then the semi-finals changed. So it's really cool when you're working towards something and then it just disappears.
But it didn't stop you training.
No, because I'm more of a process. Like, I love the process, and that's why I like gymnastics, because I think it's fun and I enjoy the process of the skills.
The carrot's just been moved, but the important thing is it didn't change the way you behave.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's still lots of competitions out there, and kind of what I said about living in Brisbane, I'm close enough to the city to jump on all of those things, Gold Coast, whatever. So I guess just shift more to like local comps, but just getting better. I mean, that's always the goal, I guess. Working on everything all at once is why I keep coming back, because, you never get bored of the style of training, because it's hard and you do the things that you don't like, but you're also rewarded with doing the fun things.
It's a fine balance. You get a little bit of exposure to what you're good at and what we talk about as feedback to feeling fit. And then you get a lot of exposure to things that are actually going to improve your expression of fitness.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I really hate squats, but I've been working hard the last, 2 years. And it is rewarding because although you hate it and you work hard on it, it like helps with everything else. So like my wall balls are better, my bike's better, and I guess the same thing with gymnastics. You might hate strict strength, you might hate strict pull-ups, but that base is always going to contribute to being able to do the fun things. So, you do the boring stuff that you don't like, and then you can be better at the stuff that you do.
Exactly. I think that's a great place to leave it. The one other thing I was going to ask, if there's anyone that wants to do sessions with you, do you still have availability, and how do they get access to you?
Yeah, for sure. Still availability, changing week to week. But just send me a message. We can talk. I usually like to talk to clients a little bit about where they're at first, just to get an understanding of, like what we'd achieve in the session. Usually it ends up being a conversation first, and then like, oh, I could actually help you with this in this way or this way. Even just seeing how they move and stuff, so we can make a game plan from there. Is always my preferred way.
Beautiful. Thanks for taking the time and talking to us, Izzy.
Thanks, Michael.